BBC Radio London at the weekend.
Gary Crowley's My London.
Hello and welcome to Gary Crowley's My London. And on this programme, we're meeting people and asking them about what it is that connects them to this exciting city of ours. And they're choosing the music. And we'll be hearing the stories behind those songs. And joining me for the next hour is actor, author Ray Brooks. It's good to meet you.
Hello, Gary.
Thanks for coming in and doing this.
That's all right.
Looking forward to hearing your London memories and the 6 songs that you've chosen. But before we do look back, Ray, let's talk about now. For those who don't know, give us an idea of what you're up to at the moment, what life entails. I mean, you've written a couple of books, haven't you?
3. But I go out and do one-man shows, and then I try and sell books when I go out.
So tell me about the one-man shows, what they entail, and what do you get from doing them as well?
Well, I mean, I sell books. I've been to Ilfracombe, which is one of the reps I went to. Where's the other one? Nottingham. I went to Brighton. I did the Little Theatre in Brighton. But unfortunately, on the south coast, they've got short arms and deep pockets. So they never buy anything. But I've been everywhere, really. Everywhere. And talking
of the south coast, you hail from Brighton. Can we give people a little bit of a taster of your background, growing up? Because you were essentially brought up by your mother, weren't you? Can you tell me your mother's name and what kind of lady she was and what she instilled in you?
Well, she was called Adelaide, and she was a bus conductress. And she used to take me to the Hippodrome Theatre, which is a variety theatre, take me to the Theatre Royal to see plays, and to the Dome to see opera and ballet and classical singers and all that. And I said, he's a good singer. She said, he's only the second best tenor in the world. Caruso's the best. She was all like that, a bit like that. She's a sweet woman.
And she also, speaking properly was very, very important as far as she was concerned.
Yeah. Well, in those days, I learnt the piano, and I wasn't very good at that. And then she sent me for elocution lessons when I was 8. And she turned out to be, Pat Donovan was her name, and she turned out to be Barry Cryer's sister-in-law, and Barry's an old friend of mine. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear a little bit about your musical history as well, because I didn't realise until doing my homework, you made your own album back in the early 70s, didn't you?
Yeah, I recorded it somewhere outside of London on a 4-track machine, and then I went to Chas Chandler's record company up the road, and they'd arranged the music, and I didn't know which one it was. It was all different because of my limitations on the guitar. Because the guitar, I learned to play a bit of a guitar when I was working at Butlins, and I had Sundays off, and there was an adagio dancer and his wife were living in the same digs, and he used to play the guitar every Sunday, and I learned a few chords. And then I got Bert Whedon's Learn the Guitar in a Day book.
Like a lot of other people.
Yeah, and things like that. And then gradually I started writing songs. Yeah, that's how it happened.
And that album, I think, came out on Polydor back in the beginning of the 70s. Lend Me Some of Your Time was the title of that. Yeah. But going back, 10 years previous, didn't Andrew Loog Oldham, who went on, of course, to become the Rolling Stones manager, didn't he sort of pursue you around Baker Street, offering you a record deal? What was the story there?
Well, basically, I used to go down. I was working with Sid James in a show called Taxi, and I had to get 2 tubes down there from Kilburn. And I got on one tube, and there's this thin as a butcher's pencil he was. He was just sitting there with dark glasses on, floppy blonde hair. And I got on the next tube, and he was there looking at me. And I went up, I said, "What are you looking at me for?" He said, "My name's Andrew Loog Oldham. Do you want to make a record?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I'm the manager of the Rolling Stones." And he was going on like that. And anyway, I did go around to his office, but he was full of girls and, thick carpet up to your knees, and it was a bit strange. The whole thing was strange.
The 60s.
Yeah.
Listen, time for a record. And like I said, I'm looking forward to hearing the London memories that you've got associated with these records. And we're going to play Don and Phil from the Everly Brothers. I think the Rolling Stones supported them on one of their early tours. Why have you chosen All I Have to Do Is Dream?
Well, basically, I bought a £3 Spanish guitar, and I took it around the reps with me. And when I was in Ilfracombe, there's a guy called Richard Davis was there, who was in Please Sir, and he was a Welshman. I could hardly play the guitar and he could hardly sing, and they were doing a charity concert at the Grand Theatre, and we went down and did that. And then we came back to London. He said, we can do an act. So we went to the BBC at the Aeolian Hall and played the songs there, a couple of songs, and we went to a club somewhere, did that. And then there was an agent in Charing Cross Road called Julius Stawowski, and we sang to him. And then within 4 weeks, he gave us a call and said, I've got you a tour of England, the Moss Empires, supporting Tommy Steele. He started off in Sunderland. And Richard got an acting job, and that was the end of it. We didn't do it. It was
Almost,
terrible.
but not quite.
Not quite. Didn't do it, no.
Dream, 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 dream.
The Everly Brothers on this edition of My London, and the actor, the author, Ray Brooks, is my guest, choosing the music. There goes Don and Phil with All I Have to Do Is Dream, and memories of a double act with the actor Richard Davis, and almost going off on tour with Tommy Steele. Almost. Let's talk about, kind of getting started as an actor. I mean, we heard a little bit earlier on about the influence of your mother, Adelaide, and speaking properly. And then I think you started, going to acting classes, groups. So how did you actually get started then?
Well, amateur dramatics we did a lot. And then a girlfriend of mine at the time, she was going to RADA. And I used to meet her from the train. And she was going on about how wonderful they were. And I thought, bored with this after a while. And I thought, I'll be an actor. Yeah, God, I'll be an actor. And I wrote off to Marjorie Vosper, that was her name. I wrote a letter. It was a terrible letter. I said, I've almost done professional acting. I said, but I'm doing amateur acting now. And I got a job at Nottingham in Treasure Island. I had 2 lines. And my elocution lessons didn't do too well because the fight on the island, gunfight, they couldn't hear me over the gunfire. So they took one of my lines away. It was terrible. Oh.
But this, was rep, am I right in saying, though, Ray? I mean, rep, I think, is sort of largely sort of, kind of disappeared off into the distance. But it was a big thing, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
For aspiring actors in the, going back as long as you like, really. But what kind of things were you learning there?
Well, you real rep, you do a different play every week with French's editions, all marked up by other actors, and you learn them from that. And I was an ASM, assistant stage manager, so after morning's rehearsal, I go out and get props in the afternoon, then come back and do the one we rehearsed the previous week in the evening. And, it's hard work, but great fun, good fun. And
you're learning your craft at the same time.
You're doing all that, yeah.
So what would have been those all-important first breaks as far as... Well, let's start with television first. What was the first thing? Can you remember seeing yourself on the TV for the first time?
Well, mostly they were live in those days, so I didn't see myself very much.
I mean, I know that you starred as... Was your character's name Norman Phillips in Coronation Street?
Oh, that was later, yeah. That was after I did thing with Sid James, yeah. That was that, and then I got the knack, yeah.
I mean, before we get to the knack, I mean, you mentioned Sid James. I mean, for a lot of us, we've all grown up with him and that face and that smile. I mean, you worked with him on a series called Taxi.
Yeah.
Tell us about Sid. I mean, how do you remember him? I mean, he gave you a lot of advice, didn't he?
He did. He did one thing. All young actors in those days all wanted to be James Dean. So we were all sullen and all that. And he just turned to me one day and said, Ray, liven up a bit, will you? That was the best bit of advice I had. And I livened up. So he was very good. He was very good. We always go to the pub at lunchtime and he'd choose horses and all that. And we go over to Bud Flanagan's betting shop in Hammersmith. He'd let me have 10 bob on something. And then all afternoon he's running to the phone and saying, excuse me, you're going off to check with these bookmakers who had the last race with. And it was all that, He was a wonderful guy. Wonderful.
I mean, again, you're working with people like that who have been doing it for a number of years. I mean, are you kind of consciously, kind of sort of watching, kind of making mental notes of the way that he's doing things? I mean, how does it work?
Well, they wouldn't let him have his monitor when we were rehearsing in the studio. And he gave me a script. He said, listen, I used to do this for Hancock. You sit by there and write down all the shots. Bit of responsibility, and then I give him to him at lunchtime, and he'd have the director into his dressing room, and he'd tell him off for some of the shots he had, all blaming me, he never told him that I did it, but he found out, and that was it. So I used to do that for him. Oh yeah, then I did a Carry On film, Carry On Abroad, and I thought, I don't know anybody here, they all know each other, and I walked into Pinewood, walked down the corridor, and there's Sid coming towards me. I said, hello, Sid. He said, hello, mate, and walked straight past me.
He'd forgotten.
He'd forgotten who I was. Gone. Never spoke to me again.
Showbiz.
That's a bit like that, yeah.
I mean, you mentioned The Knack. I watched that again recently, Ray, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's a real film of its time. Now, for those who are listening who might not know the story, Ray, of The Knack was the film that Richard Lester made after the phenomenal success of the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
I mean, tell us, first of all, about the film, because it was kind of sort of almost preempting, the sexual revolution in a way, really, wasn't it? I mean, it's a sex comedy.
Well, it wasn't. Well, it was a bit sexy. But the point is, he did, as you say, The Hard Day's Night, and was going on to do Help after that. And Lennon was always down at the set, coming down to watch, because he loved film. And there was a kind of a strange, it was very strangely written. Charles Wood wrote it. And it was just an amazing situation, really. And we went to the Cannes Film Festival, my wife and I, and we stayed in the Carlton Hotel, considered to be the second best hotel in Europe. And then on the last night, we were only 3 days there. We had a balcony and a bottle of Johnny Walker Black Label whiskey in the room and flowers and all this. And we went to the show when they were showing The Knack, and they were applauding, and I thought, this is crazy. Rita Tushingham was there with her husband, and we went out, and then the last day, because they just said sign for everything. We signed for everything. And my wife got a bit skew-whiffy. And we went to the restaurant that night in the Carlton. And he came round with the sweet trolley, and piled high it was with all kinds of things. And she said, yeah, a bread and butter pudding, please. He said, may we? And he got it. It was at the bottom. And he brought it out for her. Amazing, amazing.
Time for another track. We'll talk more about the Knack, if we can, after we hear the late, great Adam Faith. You've chosen What Do You Want? What's your London memory with this, Ray?
Well, a play was written for him, and he turned it down because he was touring and making more money touring. So I somehow got it, and they dyed my hair blonde, and I had a scene in front of the John Barry 7 live from Manchester, and did that, and that was an extraordinary experience. Then John Barry, I met him on The Knack. He did the music for The Knack, and I met him a few times in clubs, and he, about 10 years later, phoned me and said, would you come in and see me? And I went to see him, and he wanted to sign me up for everything. And he wanted 50% of everything I earned, and I turned it down. Bit foolish maybe I was at the time, but at the time I thought to myself, 50%, I'm paying 10% at my age, and why am I paying him 50? It was a recording, films, all that, and he could have got me in everywhere, really, when you think about it. But I didn't do it. So, a mistake, a kind of error.
Ray Brooks, the actor, the author, is my guest on this edition of My London, choosing the music, and the music igniting memories of the capital, and music there of one of the great composers, the late, great John Barry, and a play that you starred in called Girl on a Roof. What was the premise of that? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, the play was written for him.
For Adam?
Yeah, he turned it down, and he was out touring, and I got it, and I dyed my hair blonde. It was, as I say, it was live in Manchester. And Girl on a Roof was basically a girl who I was a great fan of mine, or whoever, I don't know, like the character I was playing, and she got on the roof and threatened to throw herself off, and I had to go up and talk her down. One of those things it was. It was sort of very gritty kind of thing. But then say John Barry tried to sign me up, and it was all very strange. The whole world was a bit strange in those days. It
seems, listening to you talk, Ray, that it was, things were moving very, very quickly. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier on, I mean, The Knack was a real kind of swinging 60s London film. I mean, I watched it, as I mentioned to you a little bit earlier on, and there's a terrific energy, to it. I think it's infectious. Sort of loses its way a little bit for me towards the end, but I wondered, what your memories were of working with Richard Lester. I mean, he kind of brought this sort of, seemingly new energy to the screen.
Well, I mean, prior to going to the Cannes Film Festival after we'd shot it, I was going to audition for a Disney film down in St James's, and I was early, so I went over to a pub opposite and had a half or something, and there's David Hemmings, who I'd worked with in Some People, a friend of mine. And he said, hello, Ray. I said, hello, Dave, how are you? He said, oh, fine. He said, what are you up to? He always say that, actors always say that. I said, I'm going off the Cannes. He said, Cannes? God, fantastic. He said, fantastic. I said, what about you? Oh, he said, I'm doing a film. He said, for Antonioni. He said, I don't know what it's called. He said, but he's going to be one of those films. And that was the other one. You know, he did
Blow
that
Up.
big film.
Yeah.
And I suddenly think, a bit strange, me and him talking. I wish I'd recorded it. It's quite funny.
I mean, you mentioned some people. We had Angela Douglas on My London a few weeks back, and she had very, very fond memories of the film because, of course, that's where she met Kenneth Moore, I think, for the first time.
Right.
But good memories for you of working on that. I mean, David Hemmings was in it, and Annika Wills as well. I mean, you played a rocker in that, didn't you?
Yeah, played mimed a guitar. Yeah, I know all those things. Yeah, did all that stuff.
I mean, talking about miming the guitar, I've got to ask you this because I'm a great fan of Billy Fury, and you starred in his movie Play It Cool as well, which was directed by an emerging Michael Winner. I mean, I wonder what your memories of working with Billy.
Well, Billy was a sweet kid. I mean,
he was shy, wasn't he?
He was very shy. He came from Liverpool, and I think he was on about 30 quid a week. That's all he was. And his manager, his agent, his manager, really, he got him a flat in Hyde Park, and he had a road manager who used to pick him up in the morning and take him to the theatre and all that stuff. But the great thing about that film was that he was out touring, as he always was, and they wanted to test two girls to play his girlfriend in it, screen test them. And Michael Winner said, "You can do it, Ray." So I did this, and this was owned by ABPC, film company. And when they were doing Some People, later, they said, "Have you got any young kids, boys?" He said, "Well, we've got some screen tests here," and he showed him mine. And I was in with these two girls. And I got the job, which is amazing. So connections, it's all about a bit of luck here and there,
I just wanted to go back and ask you about The Knack because, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on, it's a great London film, and watching it, I mean, it's just a feast to the eye as far as kind of locations are concerned. I mean, I wondered what your memories are of the making of it. I mean, I could sit here reeling off, bits that look great fun to me. I mean, there's one bit where you're tearing across West London on a Harley Davidson with Rita on the back. I mean, what do you remember of the making of the movie?
Well, Harley Davidson, I was taken down to the Harley Davidson shop in King's Road, and I had to push it with a punctured tyre, and I couldn't. It was massive. And so they faked one up for me. And then I've got Rita on the back, and we're at this building site, and we did all these, in the old days, there used to be doors they used to put around them. And I was supposed to come out, hit this door, come under it with her on the back and turn off. Anyway, so Dick's looking at his watch and saying, let's get on. Anyway, so I'm in there waiting, I'm revving up this little silly bike, and he says, action! And I go, hit the thing, go out, and the camera's closer than I thought, I swerved round and she fell off the back. So I never rode it again.
I mean, it was one of the big films of 1965. It had a big London premiere as well, didn't it? I mean, would you remember the premiere?
Yeah.
I mean, the great and the good turned up, didn't they?
Yeah, the Beatles were there. Yeah. Who else was there?
Princess Margaret?
Margaret, yeah. And her husband, yeah.
What do you remember about the evening? I mean, I'm imagining it would have been a big deal as far as you and your wife Sadie were concerned. A big West End premiere.
Yeah, it was a big one. That was very big. It was extraordinary. I mean, and Donal Donnelly was in it, and I was in a park with our children, and he said, "Do you realise they're queuing around the London Pavilion now to go and see this film?" It was true, they were, and I got £1,000 for it. And he got £1,000, and that was it. QED, done.
Have you watched it recently yourself?
No.
I mean, it's got a lovely infectious energy, like I said. And, I mean, there's some, you talked about the Beatles being there. And, of course, this was the film that he made after A Hard Day's Night. There's some great visual gags where you could imagine the Beatles, kind of doing those. I mean, John Lennon would come on set every now and then, wouldn't he?
Oh, he'd look around. Oh, he'd love it, yeah. He'd love it, yeah. And, of course, he did Help after that, straight after that. He did some extraordinary films, Dick. Yeah.
I mean, you talked about yours and Donald's children, and it was children. I think I'm right in saying that kind of played a part in you getting the role in Ken Loach's Kathy Comes Home.
Yeah, well, that was different because I met Mike King, her husband, Carol White's husband, up in Manchester when I was doing something up there. And he said, I'm married to an actress. He said, you must come and have dinner with us. He's very gregarious. So we went down to their place in Hammersmith, in the Guinness Building's basement. cobwebs everywhere and all that. And they had 2 little boys, and they came back to our flat, and then we were there, and all that was going on. And then she suddenly said, "Oh, Ken's offered me a play." So I said, "Really?" She said, "Called Kathy." He said, "And they want my 2 boys in it, but it's a bit rough and everything. Could you play my husband?" So I said, "Well, I could." I said, "The thing is, will he have me?" I said, because she said, "Well, the boys know you and it makes them more comfortable on the set." So that's why I did it.
Listen, we'll talk more about that very, very shortly. But we're going to play the Beatles now and A Hard Day's Night. A London memory with this one, Ray? Which one would you have?
Hard Day's Night.
We mentioned going into A Hard Day's Night, Ray, we were talking about Kathy Come Home. I mean, it had such an impact when it was first broadcast. I mean, again, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was part of the BBC Wednesday night play for today.
Yeah.
I mean, you were telling us about, Carol kind of almost sort of putting you up for the part in a way, really. Let's talk about your memories of working with Ken Loach, because he's a great improviser. I mean, you hadn't really done much of that before, had you?
No, I'd never done that before, but he used to say, "You and Carol walk in that park." He said, "Just say these 3 things I want you to put in." He said, "Just talk." That's what we did. And Tony Emy, who was the cameraman, used to carry this Araflex camera on his shoulder. He was a massive guy, carry it around everywhere. But anyway, going back to the records and things, just basically this, I must have mentioned to Carol that I'd written some songs, and she played them to Mike King. Mike King was touring the country with the King Brothers, and he got me a record deal, which is how it started, really, for me.
But going back to Ken, though, you were saying about, working with someone who was a great improviser, and I mean, did you take to that like a duck to water? Did you find it difficult, a challenge?
No, not really. No, I mean, straight after Kathy Come Home, I did a test for The Family Way with Hayley Mills, with the Bolting brothers, and they used to nail down on the floor little marks, wooden marks, and they said, "Look right when you say that line, look left when you say that." And this was so different to Ken Loach. I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible difference between the two,
Did you enjoy that freedom, though, Ray?
Yes, it was just easier, I mean, I dried in one of the lines in it. I keep looking at it now when I've seen it, a bit of it. I go, and I go, "Oh," and do that and come back. I got the line wrong. It was just ridiculous. Anyway, it's good fun. Very good fun. I
mean, I wonder what your kind of memories are of the actual kind of making of it, and sort of almost, taking a look into that world of homelessness in London at that time.
Well, apparently there was only 200,000 people unemployed in those days. Apparently, according to Ken.
Do you remember the next day and the the impact of Kathy Comes Home, because it had a tremendous impact, didn't it? I mean, I think I'm right in saying, Ray, that it was kind of instrumental in Shelter, the charity, being formed.
Well, Carol and I were on the board of Shelter when it first started, but I had a phone call from somebody who said he was Max Bygraves. So and it took me about 10 minutes to convince him that I thought he was. And he said, "I was so moved last night." He said, "I was sitting in front of the television thinking, this is the most wonderful show I've ever seen in my life." He said, "Kathy Come Home." My wife came and said, "What are you crying for?" He said, "Well, I'm just so moved." He said, "I'm so moved." And he suddenly said to me, "I've written a little song. Kathy, come home, Kathy, come home, please, Kathy, come home." He said, "Do you sing?" I said, "Well, a bit. Why?" He said, "We'll make a fortune." That was what the purpose of the call was.
Didn't really get the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Carol clearly was a good pal. She had quite a sad demise, really, didn't she?
I mean, she shot off like a rocket after the end of Kathy Come Home. She went straight to Hollywood and did all the things, all they all do when they go over there, making big films and all that. But then it all kind of went down the hill. What
made her special? What made her unique as an actress? Someone to kind of, act opposite against?
Well, she was a true Cockney. She was also... She had a kind of like Pavlov's dogs. If she cried, the country cried. And that's what happened at the end of that. When she's sitting on that bench in some station when they take the kids away from her, That wailing.
I watched that again very, very recently, and
the wailing. Oh,
I defy anybody not to be to be moved by that.
I know. I know. She was extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of kind of lighter things, I suppose really, Doctor Who is something that kind of has this sort of enduring appeal. I mean, your face has just broken into a lovely smile. I mean, I would imagine, Ray, that it was a lot of fun making the movie.
Peter Cushing, yeah.
And Bernard Cribbins?
Yeah.
What are the memories that have kind of stayed with you? Because of course you had the Daleks in your film as well, didn't you?
I was quite athletic in those days, rolling around with rifles and shooting Cybermen and all that stuff going on. It was extraordinary. I mean, Cushing was a very old-fashioned actor, and he did 1984. Do you know that, on television live? And he had the rats in this cage in his head, around his face. And he had to repeat it the following week, live again. Oh, it's terrible. But he was a really lovely man, lovely man. And I was at a signing once, which you get dragged to occasionally, and they were asking us about CGI. And they said, what about Peter Cushing in Star Wars? They used his image in the second one. So I said, well, yeah, actors like to work even if they're dead. As long as, that was... Anyway, Cribbins said, that's a good idea, good thinking. That sort of things.
Lovely. Listen, time for another record, and then we'll talk some more.
Okay.
And again, I'm loving hearing the London memories that you've got with some of your tracks. And Glenn Campbell, we're going to hear now. A 20-foot high classic song in Wichita Lineman. Where does this take you back to, Ray?
It takes me back to when my wife and I used to go out, and I was working a lot. We used to go out on a Friday night. We'd have what we call a board meeting. We'd go out for dinner. We'd discuss things, and we'd always come home, and we wouldn't go to bed till 3 o'clock. We were playing all these records, and that was one of our favourites.
Glenn Campbell, of course, and Wichita Lineman, to give it its correct title. And it is My London, and the actor, the author, Ray Brooks, is my guest. And by the way, if you want to read Ray's blog and also find out more about the 2 books, we'll talk about those that he's written a little bit later on, Echoes and Lies, and also your autobiography, Learning My Lines. Simply go to Ray's website, which is raybrooks.com. I want to ask you about a TV series that has endured and continues to be, cherished and loved. I love it when you that smile breaks out on your face. But I want to ask you about Mr. Ben, of course. Well, what's your reaction? You're not bored of talking about it, are you?
No, I'm not bored. I mean, I did it. I did them all. It
was only 13, wasn't there?
14. There's
14.
one called The Gladiator. And I did them I can't remember when I did them now, 78 or something. It took 2 years because Dave McKee had to do the animation. He was commissioned by the BBC to do it. And I got 940 quid.
So that's a buyout. No repeats?
No, this is the point. No money, no extra money, right? And they were repeated for 21 years on the BBC. Then it went into Nick Jr., sold shed loads of VHSs and all these things were going on. And he came over to England, he lives in France now, and we took him out for lunch. And my wife grilled him and said, why isn't Ray getting any more money? He said, well, you better talk to my financial man. So I talked to him. He said, no, it was a buyout. So I got onto equity. And I said, what's happened? They said, buyouts weren't until 73. Have you got the contract? I went back to the old agent. I said, have you got it? He said, I'll have a look. He couldn't find it. He couldn't find his, so I didn't get any more money. And then they were going to digitalise it. They said, well, we'll digitalise it. I said, well, I'm not going to do it. You get somebody else in. And they gave me 10,000 quid. But I should have got about 300,000, really.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And fair play to Sadie for bringing it up as well.
I know.
Would she like to manage me?
She would do, yeah, she would.
I mean, but the programme is so loved and so cherished, isn't it? I mean, I just wonder whether you could kind of give us a little taster of the kind of cross section of people that stop you in the street and ask about it.
Well, everywhere I go, I should say at least once a week, people say, you're Mr. Ben. I mean, my voice is changed anyway, but they sort of get a cadence of my voice and they think it's me, suddenly as if by magic the shopkeeper appeared, all that, quite extraordinary.
But it is grannies stopping you in the street?
No, young people. Because, I mean, they've got it on DVD. I mean, there's an old granny came out to me one day, said, "Oh, thank goodness you did it." She said, "I have to have my grandson," she said, 3 times a week, and he gets bored with all this smash grab and all those noisy ones, and I get him the DVD of it, and he loves it. It's so simple, quite straightforward stories. Oh.
And isn't there a story as well, Ray, of Liam Gallagher coming up to you somewhere here in London? I'd love to hear that.
Well, I was in that pub where I saw you the other week, and they said, "They're outside." I said, "Who?" "Oh, they're outside." And oh God. So I went outside and sat in the sun. This looming great goat came over to me. He said, "Excuse me." He said, "Liam wants to talk to you." So I said, "Oh, all right." So I walked over, there's Liam Gallagher there. He said, "Oh, can I have your autograph, please?" And he wanted my autograph because I was Mr. Ben. Extraordinary.
But a lovely thing to be known for, something that's, that's kind of clearly resonated with people and enriched people's lives.
Yeah, extraordinary.
I mean, I wanted to talk to you also and ask you about, some of the theatre that you've done here in this great city over the years. I mean, I could sit here, kind of reeling off, what was it, the Alan Ayckbourn one, Absent Friends with Richard Bryars.
Yeah.
Maggie Smith, Snap. I mean, what are the productions, Ray, that you look back on?
I look back on the National Theatre, a Stoppard play, on the Razzle. Jacqueline du Pré came in and they said, "Would you mind if she sat in the wings and watched it?" Because there's no sort of wheelchair access. So she sat there and she was nearly falling out of her chair laughing. It was wonderful. And the other thing was very extraordinary about it was that on Boxing Day, we always go to a friend's house where the kids would do little acts and we take round food. And we had a Boxing Day show on the Razzle. So I had to leave and I was really angry. But as I got nearer to the theatre, I thought, this is their Christmas. And we're going to make them laugh. And they do. They laughed all the way through it. Tom Stopper was a clever man. Very clever.
Ray, time for another track. And you've chosen one of the great London songs, I suppose, really, next, in Baker Street by Gerry Rafferty. What's your London memory with this? Why have you chosen this one?
Well, because the saxophone in it, I don't know whether he was a session musician, because I knew lots of session musicians. I knew Vic Flick, who played for John Barry, and Les Reed, and the other one, which was very interesting, Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page was a session musician for years, and I was invited down on Father's Day to his Scarlett, who went out with my other son, and went down there for Father's Day to Bray, where he bought his first girlfriend's house in Bray. Went down there, and I found out that he was session musician for years, learning about the business, and then he started Led Zeppelin and cleaned up.
He really did. But we want to know who was playing the sax on this.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
I mean, there is a story that's been doing the rounds for a long time that Bob Holness, the presenter, was meant to play the saxophone on this, but I think it's just an apocryphal story.
I think it would be, yeah.
And Baker Street, of course, from Gerry Rafferty, and we've just discovered that it was a Scottish musician called Raphael Ravenscroft who apparently played the saxophone on that. So now you know.
Thank you.
Okay, I've given you something today.
Yeah, I may never remember it, but it's all right. That's good.
I mean, talking about London, I mean, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you about your memories of working on EastEnders, set in a fictitious East London. How do you look back on your time on that programme? It wasn't the happiest of times for you, was it?
No.
It started well.
It started well because everybody was interested. There was all kinds of people in there I knew. John Barden, for instance, I knew. I'd worked with him on Big Deal. And of course, I mean, there was June Brown and all these people were lovely. And everyone was interviewing, wanted to talk to me. And then when I had to marry Pauline Fowler, everything changed. She never spoke to me. And we used to go down to the set, separate ways, get to the set. She'd say, "Morning, Ray," and that'd be it. Then we run the scene, shoot the scene, and we go back our separate ways. It was very strange, very strange. She didn't want to get married, you see.
I mean, talking about acting, what was the last thing that you acted in?
The last thing? Probably that.
If the right part came along now, would you be interested?
I would, yeah, if I could learn the lines. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd do it. Yeah, of course. I mean, Doctor Who, for instance. I'm going to give you a clue. I blogged about Doctor Who, and I've blogged about how I could be in it, and said I could be in doctor's surgery and suddenly go whoosh, and I was in the TARDIS and not know what I was, and wouldn't have a screwdriver, have a pencil, wouldn't know what to do. And this girl who's in it now, she doesn't know what's going on either. So I think they've picked up on that. I'm not saying they have, but I'm just saying it seemed very similar to me. She doesn't know quite what to do.
And is there a role that you've been not coveting, but a role that you think that and you have done for a while? I could do that. I could nail that.
No, I mean I certainly was asked to play Ian Brady in The Moors Murder, and I turned that down. He came back to me and he said, "Oh, come on," and in the end he said, "No, we can't do it." He said, "Because in certain states in America, if it goes out in those states," he said, "they can sue for defamation of character." So I didn't do it, thank God. Oh, it was awful. Horrible.
I've got to ask you about London and, your relationship with the city. I mean, home is southwest London, in and around Kew, isn't it? What do you love about the area that you live in, Ray?
It's very peaceful. A lot of older people around there, like me, and people walking slower than me sometimes, but that's because they're working with sticks. But basically, it's quite pleasant. But I love Brighton as well, where I was born. And I go down there. We've got a place down there, so I go down there once a month, once every 6 weeks, because I like the atmosphere down there. It's quieter.
Do you get to come up to the centre of London much, you and Sadie, on a night out or a day out?
Not so much now, no, not so much now, no, not so much.
I mean, I know that you've got grandchildren. Have you done that thing of taking them around the city and, showing them some of the places that are, special to you?
They came over last Christmas, my 2 grandchildren from New Zealand, and my granddaughter, who's only about 3, she loves painting. So I bought this painting set with an easel and everything on it, and paper and everything. And I came down in a white T-shirt. I said, "We're going down to Tommy's for Christmas." I said, "You can paint my T-shirt with the Christmas thing." And they came in brushes. It was rubbish. It was terrible in the end. But I went down there dripping with paint and went down to dinner with my other son. So it was nice. It's nice.
Ray, I appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I really do. Thank you.
Silly.
And as I said, Learning the Lines, Ray's autobiography is available, and also 2 novels in
I've
Echoes.
got one other one coming out now.
Well, tell us about that. So that's all written, ready to go?
Yeah, called The Running Boy.
And the inspiration for that?
There's somebody in Brighton I see running around all the time, and I thought, well, if somebody was as old as me, and he saw his brother-in-law, he said, "Do something," and he starts running, and in 8 months' time he's running in the London Marathon. So that's the story, roughly.
Well, look, listen, good luck with that.
Thank you.
And again, if you want to sort of keep up to date with, everything that's going on in Ray's world, probably the website is the best place to begin, and that is at raybrooks.com. Time for our final record, and time for our final London memory. Randy Newman, Lonely at the Top. Now, I didn't know, Ray, until doing my homework, that he wrote this with Frank Sinatra in mind. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
apparently this was written for Sinatra in the early 70s, but apparently Frank thought that it wasn't him. It was a little bit too lyrically near to the bone.
Yeah, sure.
Why have you chosen it?
Well, because Dave McKee took me to see him at the Palladium, and I thought he was wonderful. I loved him.
I've been around the